science history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a big bang.
Back when I was writing and producing Doma and Greg, the only way to read my cods was to record each episode on a VCR and hit the pause button. This was not an easy task. The image wobbled like crazy, making the tiny words of my weekly tomes very hard to see. Then it hit me. What about building a device that records video images digitally? Wouldn't this allow for a much more precise pause function? I took my little notion to an impoverished computer whiz by the name of Slow-Mo Tivowitz. At the time of our meeting, Slow-Mo was feverishly trying to invent an improved version of the George Foreman grill. Slow-Mo's grill would contain a hard drive that remembered all the details of your last barbecue as well as an address book. I didn't really see the point of it, but not being a tech guy, I held my tongue and presented him with my idea. I will never forget his reaction. With hamburger-flecked spittle flying from his blubbery lips, he laughed, called me some very unkind names and demanded that I leave his mother's basement immediately. My hopes dashed. I went back to work on Doma and forgot about my silly idea. Well, I'm sure you can figure out what happened next. The fact that you're reading this card right now should tell you. Thankfully, it's not in my nature to be bitter, but there are times when I feel a little used, usually when I've forgotten how to effectively grill a fatty piece of chicken. Don't fall for a woman who has had sex with one of your rock and roll heroes. No matter how emotionally evolved you think you are, you will never enjoy listening to Eric Clapton again. Don't lurk around websites where people comment about your work unless you are drunk. Don't use emoticons. You are too old to communicate like a 12-year-old girl. Don't forget that you are the product of a culture that went stark raving mad about 10,000 years ago. Adjust your thinking accordingly. Don't answer TV critics' questions about the state of TV comedy. It's a trap. Don't eat anything bigger than your head. True in the 60s, true today. Don't believe that crap that you're as young as you feel. Your feelings lie. Don't hug men while shaking their hand. Enough with that. The shake or hug, shug, is probably something Roman guys did when their empire was in decline. The hardest journey is the one which leads to the truth. I didn't know that when I began my little midnight ramble. If I had, I probably would have stayed home, drank myself stupid and watched Ferguson until the big nod and closed my book for the day. But there I was, standing outside her house, looking up at her bedroom window while a cold rain whipped me in the face like I'd somehow pissed it off. I could see her kissing him. I could see her as she slowly descended beneath the window frame. I could see him too. He just stood there smiling like the canary who got eaten by the cat. But then a funny thing happened while I was dancing the voyeuristic bebop in my terribly trendy, bright green plastic shoes. I found myself thinking that the aching loneliness I was feeling had its roots in something much deeper than being 86 to a one-bedroom efficiency in the marina by a dame who digs deep into the degrading bang-bang in order to make up for an emotionally distant father. No, this was the pain of existential separateness, the false sense that one is fundamentally apart from people, things, life, the whole damn universe. In a blinding flash, I realized that what I was really experiencing was the result of a lifelong indoctrination by a culture which elevates individualism above all else, thus causing a soul-crushing sense of aloneness which demands over and under-the-counter medication, the constant distraction of sporting events, TV, major motion pictures and a pop tabloid religion based on celebrity worship or crucifixion. Of course, this epiphany did not deter me from pulling the Roscoe out of my fanny pack and going into the house to TCFB. As I crossed up the stairs, I could feel my wet tube socks squishing through the little round holes of my polyurethane Crocs. Alright, shut up, sit down and listen. I am our immortal spirit Sheldon Leonard, and for the last years I've been using the body of Chuck Lorre to channel my ideas for new sitcoms. For the record, he's a stinking lousy channel and my ideas are much better than what he's putting on television. This is why I am breaking my anonymity. No matter how specific I tell the kid what to write, he still manages to cork it up. Doma and Greg, what the hell was that? I specifically said, do a show about a queer guy who loves a straight chick and she loves him back, but they can't, you know, bump uglies. But does Lorre listen? No way, Jose. The put turns it inside out, winds up with hippie chick loves uptight lawyer and then wonders why he can't buy an Emmy. I did find a writing team to act as a channel for that pitch, which worked out pretty good, Emmy and cash-wise. Anyway, back to Lorre. Couple years later, while he's sleeping, I whisper to him, 2 brothers inherit a midget. Funny, right? What's Lorre do? You got it, 2.5 men, gimme a break. Anyway, I decide to give the mook one last chance. While he's under the gas at the dentist, I tell him to do a show about 4 wise guys and a sexy dame what knows the score. So what does the knucklehead do? Scientists and a waitress. It just breaks my heart. But at least the dope managed to slip my name in this one. Now if you'll excuse me, I got a schlep over to Milton Berry's crypt for a little pinochle with the boys. Last winter, the magazine Entertainment Weekly did a story about me in which I was called the angriest man in television. When the article came out, I shrugged and said things like, "Oh, it's just a trashy tabloid. It doesn't mean anything." But you know what? That's a lot of crap. It's taken me 10 months to get in touch with my feelings about that article, pretty quick for a guy, and guess what? I'm angry. How dare anyone suggest I have no right to feel what I feel? If you're even barely engaged in this world, anger manifests itself constantly, assuming you are not medicated, which I am not, damn it to hell. And let's be totally honest here, anger does a lot of good. It clenches my stomach muscles into a tight knot so I can look good with my shirt tucked in. It adds hours and hours of productivity by keeping me awake until 5 o'clock in the morning. It's a constant reminder that I should never own a gun. It makes fold an opportunity to practice my javelin toss. It fills me with joy every time Lewis Black is on The Daily Show. It adds sizzle to caffeine. It whispers to me that I'm fine, that I don't need to slow down, and that my cardiologist is an idiot. It keeps people at a healthy distance during flu season, and the rest of the year as well. And finally, it encourages me to use my vanity card to foolishly burn bridges with TV critics. Hey W, do not screw with me. I've got 2 vanity cards now and I'm not afraid to use them. Okay, the sun's coming up. I'm gonna try to get some sleep. I'm writing this vanity card at 6 o'clock in the morning on October 18th, 2007. It's my birthday. I am 59 years old. I have long ago become invisible to young women. They actually do not see me, but I am not writing this to complain. I am at peace with my circumstances. The blessing of 55 is a libido in decline. The curse of it is that the major pharmaceutical companies are successfully exploiting my insecurities. Suddenly that surreal commercial of a silver-haired gut sitting naked in an outdoor bathtub and holding hands with a naked, slightly younger woman in an adjacent tub makes perfect sense. If I had produced that spot, I would have given him a small plasma screen TV so he could watch ESPN during his hang time. I'm also mesmerized by the commercial featuring middle-aged men gleefully celebrating their ability to drink water and drive long distances. I particularly enjoy that the slightly younger women in that one are turned on knowing their geezers don't have to urinate frequently. Anyway, it's my birthday today. If you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go suck on my bronchitis inhaler so that later today I can blow out the candles without hacking up a lung. Show of hands. During the climactic face-scrunching moment of the sex act, how many of you out there sometimes find yourself thinking, "Gee, I must look pretty silly right now"? Come on, be honest. Okay, I understand. This is a little too intimate for a public conversation. How about if we do it this way? If you're alone right now, just nod. If you're reading this with your sexual partner, simply look at them, smile sheepishly, then when they smile back, suddenly twist your face into your freakiest orgasm position. If they laugh, know you're in good company. Give them a hug, hit the play button on your DVR and watch 2.5 Men. If they don't laugh, hit the play button on your DVR, watch 2.5 Men, then go out and find a new partner. United we stand. To let go of the fear and anger which imprisons my heart, to relinquish all childish expectations and live joyfully in the world as it is, not as I wish or imagine it to be. To be free of the always craven and ever craving ego, to be released from the endless hungers of the body, to see God in others, to see God in everything, to die without death and merge my consciousness into the comic sea of bliss from which I came, to crank out 2 sitcoms a week that can compete with a deaf chick dancing her ass off. This is my soul's journey. Well, wouldn't you know it? Just 2 episodes back from the strike and I've already managed to write a vanity card that is completely unacceptable to the good folks at CBS. I wasn't trying to offend, honest. I just saw an opportunity to poke some proverbial fun, to nosh on the hand that feeds if you will. They were not amused. If you would like to read my latest exercise in poor judgment, I'm sure you can find it somewhere on that thing we writers were striking to claim dominion over. Just be on the safe side. I apologize in advance. Please know that my aim was only to provoke a bit of gaiety through the judicious use of a little thing I like to call the truth. Unfortunately, in the television business, the truth rarely sets anyone free. More often than not, it just pisses them off. 200 vanity cards. I have now amassed a body of work that can safely be called pointlessly unique. In the history of literary efforts, there has never been a literary effort quite like this one. Okay, literary might be pushing it, but I don't think I'm engaging in hyperbole when I say that it's highly unlikely my achievement will ever be duplicated, let alone surpassed. Why? Well, most show creators who are awarded the hallowed, second and a half, end of episode hey everybody look at me, card have better things to do. Those that have no life, a goodly number, are simply not compelled to vomit up weekly offerings of painfully personal, petty, mock metaphysical self-congratulatory, rage-filled and regretfully sarcastic essays that occasionally haunt them forever. Sure, non-showrunners can write a weekly essay of no particular value. But for it to be considered a true vanity card, it must be attached to the ass end of a television show. And let's keep in mind I've made a lot more shows than vanity cods. There were many weeks on Dahmer and Greg and 2.5 Men when I was too wasted, mostly in the literary sense, to write something coherent. Anyway, I wanted to use this momentous card to celebrate my accomplishment because, well, no one else was jumping up to do it. 200 cards. Boy oh boy, that is really something. Oh god, I'm so lonely. Tonight's story about Sheldon's ego being crushed following his encounter with a young prodigy has its roots in my own life. Around 1974 I was playing guitar for a living in Miami Beach. I was 22 years old and thought I was really something. In the parlance of musicians, I felt I had some serious chops. Night I played clubs, hotels and private parties. For a few months I worked in a lounge band on a cruise ship. I even landed a day gig playing acoustic solo stuff at a coffee house in South Beach. That was where a professor from the University of Miami saw me play, dug what I was doing and invited me to audit his jazz guitar class at the university. I happily accepted, thinking I might be able to teach the kids a thing or two. I still remember the first class, me sitting in the back proudly holding my beat-up 64 Fender Strat while the college students all cradled the expensive Gibsons. Of course, this only made me feel more smug. I was a working musician. These were rich kids in a rich school with instruments that daddy bought them. But then something happened that would change my life forever. A painfully shy, 16-year-old boy walked into the room. He could barely speak nor make eye contact with anyone, seemed dwarfed by his big jazz guitar, and was ludicrously introduced as a visiting professor to the university. His name was Pat Metheny. I'll never forget how I felt when he began to play. It was an imploding feeling, like the kind you get when your ego is being demolished like an old Vegas casino. Thankfully, the feeling was accompanied by a soft, reassuring voice in my head that whispered, "Find work in television. Nobody is a prodigy there." 13 years later I listened to that voice. I may have been deluded, but I was no quitter. Oh, and Pat, if you happen to read this, thank you. It's just the theme music. I think we can all agree that the cliché "no pain, no gain" is a fundamental truth. When we experience physical pain in the gym, we gain muscle and stamina. When we endure hardship and sacrifice in order to succeed, we gain a feeling of satisfaction and achievement, not to mention financial rewards. When we truly embrace emotional pain, we gain compassion for the suffering of others, and appreciation for the fleeting nature of things, as well as wisdom and spiritual humility. Every act of birth is an act of pain. Our very lives are sustained by the suffering and death of plants and animals, who in turn are sustained by other organisms having a very bad day. That being said, I think we can also agree this system sucks and needs to be seriously rejiggered. Now, I'm not saying I have a better approach than this pain gain thing that's been in place for millions of years, but that doesn't mean we couldn't start tossing around some ideas. For instance, why couldn't an infrastructure for life be developed around the theme "no dream, no gain"? Sounds like heaven, right? Or is dreaming too easy? Would life quickly become complacent and cease to gain? But then, is gain really that critical? Or is gain the whole point? Is the fact that life exists at all proof that God or the universe hates complacency? It certainly explains why Aboriginal people are constantly being murdered for the sake of progress. It even explains why HBO went down the toilet. Yep, just the theme music again. I believe that in order to walk through grief, fear, loneliness, despair, confusion and anger without recourse to drugs, alcohol, overeating, oversexing or the endless mind-numbing distractions provided by Western culture, one must become a spiritual warrior. I further believe that the payoff for enduring suffering for sobriety, embracing the inevitable bouts of emotional pain that life brings, is wisdom and serenity in the face of calamity. But make no mistake here, the path of the warrior is treacherous and cannot be walked alone. To survive, he must have brothers and sisters in arms to carry him when he buckles. When we lived and died in small tribes, this principle of mutually supporting one another through the trials of life was deeply woven into the fabric of the group mind. With the advent of towns and cities, we were forced to live with this daily dilemma of being desperately alone and yet desperately needing one another. Which is why we are, by design, always seeking new tribes. With that in mind, I humbly offer a simple guideline to evaluate the efficacy of any tribe you might encounter on your path to becoming a spiritual warrior. If they ask for your money or access to your crotch, run away. If they ask for your money, smile unceasingly, never blink, and guarantee to make you a demigod. Running away will not suffice. Change your mailing address and briefly reconsider drugs, alcohol, food, sex and TV. I believe that the voices of fear, both from without and within, can only be dispelled by trusting the voice that comes from the heart. Be still and listen to it. If it speaks of love and compassion for others, for the world itself, it just might be the voice of God, or a reasonable facsimile. If, however, it snarls with fear of the unknown, fear of losing what you have or of not getting what you want, then it just might be the voice of Rupert Murdoch, or a reasonable facsimile.